Hello. Came to read a quick chapter with you because it's been a day. Are we crooked? I can never fully tell. It's been a day. And all I could think about was taking a minute to sit down with y'all and be together. Be with y'all, be with myself, and be with a special guest tonight. This is Pip. Can you say hello, Pip? She said my foot is more interesting. Don't know if you can see her there. Blends in with the blanket, sweet baby. I've been trying to get her to come on, but she just has not been available. Even tonight, she was sitting down there on the bed, and I said, "Do you want to come with me?" And she was like, "No." I went back down to get something, and the cat was laying beside her, and she was like, "I think I'll come with you now." She's not fond of cats. She's doing well with the one that we have now. She's slowly gotten used to cats over the years, but I had her for over 5 years before she really got introduced to cats, and she just was like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with them. I think I'm supposed to chase them, I think." And I was like, "No, you're not." And then she did get the chance to chase one time, but literally just ran up to it and then stopped, I don't know what to do now. You did do that. But yeah, so Pip's home with us tonight. Very special guest. And we are reading chapter 25, Reuben Smith. It's good to be with y'all. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be with you tonight. I must now say a little bit about Reuben Smith, who was left in charge of the stables when York went to London. No one more thoroughly understood his business than he did, and when he was all right, there could not be a more faithful or valuable man. He was gentle and very clever in his management of horses, and could doctor them almost as well as a farrier, for he had lived 2 years with a veterinary surgeon. He was a first-rate driver. He could take a four-in-hand or a tandem as easily as a pair. He was a handsome man, a good scholar, and had very pleasant manners. I believe everybody liked him. Certainly the horses did. The only wonder was that he should be in an under situation, and not in the place of a head coachman like York. But he had one great fault, and that was the love of drink. He was not like some men, always at it. He used to keep steady for weeks or months together, and then he would break out and have a bout of it, as York called it, and be a disgrace to himself, a terror to his wife, and a nuisance to all that had to do with him. He was, however, so useful that 2 or 3 times York had hushed the matter up, and kept it from the Earl's knowledge. But one night, when Reuben had to drive a party home from a ball, he was so drunk that he could not hold the reins, and a gentleman of the party had to mount the box and drive the ladies home. Of course, this could not be hidden, and Reuben was at once dismissed. His poor wife and little children had to turn out to the pretty cottage by the park gate and go where they could. Old Max told me all of this, for it happened a good while ago, but shortly before Ginger and I came, Smith had been taken back again. York had interceded for him with the Earl, who was very kind-hearted, and the man had promised faithfully that he would never taste another drop as long as he lived there. He had kept his promise so well that York thought he might be safely trusted to fill his place whilst he was away, and he was so clever and honest that no one else seemed so well fitted for it. It was now early in April, and the family was expected home sometime in May. The light Brougham was to be fresh done up, and as Colonel Blanter was obliged to return to his regiment, it was arranged that Smith should drive him to the town in it, and ride back. For this purpose he took the saddle with him, and I was chosen for the journey. At the station the colonel put some money into Smith's hand and bid him good-bye, saying, "Take care of your young mistress, Reuben, and don't let Black Auster be hacked about by any random young prig that wants to ride him. Keep him for the lady." We left the carriage at the maker's, and Smith rode me to the White Lion and ordered the ostler to feed me well and have me ready for him at 4 o'clock. A nail in one of my front shoes had started as I came along, but the ostler did not notice it till just about 4 o'clock. Smith did not come into the yard till 5, and then he said he should not leave till 6, as he had met with some old friends. The man then told him of the nail, and asked if he should have the shoe looked to. "No," said Smith, "that will be all right till we get home." He spoke in a very loud, off-hand way, and I thought it very unlike him, not to see about the shoe, as he was generally wonderfully particular about loose nails in our shoes. He did not come at 6, nor 7, nor 8, and it was nearly 9 o'clock before he called for me. And then it was a loud, rough voice. He seemed in a very bad temper, and abused the ostler, though I could not tell what for. The landlord stood at the door and said, "Have a care, Mr. Smith." But he said angrily with an oath, and almost he was out of the town he began to gallop, frequently giving me a sharp cut with the whip, though I was going at full speed. The moon had not yet risen, and it was very dark. The roads were stony, having been recently mended. Going over them at this pace, my shoe became looser, and when we were near the turnpike gate, it came off. If Smith had been in his right senses, he would have been sensible of something wrong in my pace, but he was too madly drunk to notice anything. Beyond the turnpike was a long piece of road, upon which fresh stones had just been laid, large sharp stones, over which no horse could be driven quickly without risk of danger. Over this road, with one shoe gone, I was forced to gallop at my utmost speed, my rider meanwhile cutting into me with his whip, and with wild curses urging me to go still faster. Of course, my shoeless foot suffered dreadfully. The hoof was broken and split down to the very quick, and the inside was terribly cut by the sharpness of the stones. This could not go on. No horse could keep his footing under such circumstances. The pain was too great. I stumbled and fell with violence on both my knees. Smith was flung off by my fall, and owing to the speed I was going at, he must have fallen with great force. I soon recovered my feet and limped to the side of the road, where it was free from stones. The moon had just risen above the hedge, and by its light I could see Smith lying a few yards beyond me. He did not rise. He made one slight effort to do so, and then there was a heavy groan. I could have groaned too, for I was suffering intense pain, both from my foot and knees. But horses are used to bear their pain in silence. I uttered no sound, but I stood there and listened. One more heavy groan from Smith, but though he now lay in the full moonlight, I could see no motion. I could do nothing for him nor myself, but oh, how I listened for the sound of horses or wheels or footsteps. The road was not much frequented, and at this time of night we might stay for hours before help came to us. I stood watching and listening. It was a calm, sweet April night. There were no sounds but a few low notes of a nightingale, and nothing moved but the white clouds near the moon and a brown owl that flitted over the hedge. It made me think of the summer nights long ago, when I used to lie beside my mother in the green, pleasant meadow at Farmer Gray's. It goes into the next chapter. Let's go into it. Chapter 26, how it ended. Pip, come here, baby. Come lay down. Good girl. It must have been nearly midnight when I heard at a great distance the sound of a horse's feet. Sometimes the sound died away when it grew clearer again and nearer. The road to Earl's Hall led through plantations that belonged to the Earl. The sound came in that direction, and I hoped it might be someone coming in search of us. As the sound came nearer and nearer, I was almost sure I could distinguish Ginger's step. A little nearer still, and I could tell she was in the dog cart. I neighed loudly, and was overjoyed to hear an answering neigh from Ginger, and men's voices. They came slowly over the stones and stopped at the dark figure that lay upon the ground. One of the men jumped out and stooped down over it. "It is Reuben," he said, "and he does not stir." The other man followed and bent over him. He's dead, he said. "Feel how cold his hands are." They raised him up, but there was no life, and his hair was soaked with blood. They laid him down again and came and looked at me. They saw my cut knees. "Why, the horse has been down and thrown him. Who would have thought that the black horse would have done that? Nobody thought he could fall. Reuben must have been lying here for hours. Odd, too, that the horse has not moved from the place." Robert then attempted to lead me forward. I made a step, but almost fell again. "Hello, he's bad in his foot as well as his knees. Look here. His hoof is cut all to pieces, and he might well come down, poor fellow. I tell you what, Ned, I'm afraid it hasn't been all right with Reuben. Just think of him riding a horse over these stones without a shoe. Why, if he had been in his right senses, he would just as soon have tried to ride him over the moon. I'm afraid it has been the old thing over again. Poor Susan. She looked awfully pale when she came to my house to ask if he had not come home. She made believe she was not a bit anxious and talked of a lot of things that might have kept him. But for all that, she begged me to go and meet him. And what must we do? There's the horse to get home as well as the body, and that will be no easy matter." Then followed a conversation between them till it was agreed that Robert, as the groom, should lead me, and that Ned must take the body. It was a hard job to get it to the dog cart, for there was no one to hold Ginger, but she knew as well as I what was going on, and stood as still as a stone. I noticed that, because if she had a fault, it was that she was impatient in standing. Ned started off very slowly with his sad load, and Robert came and looked at my foot again. Then he took his handkerchief and bound it closely round, and so he led me home. I shall never forget that night walk. It was more than 3 miles. Robert led me on very slowly, and I limped and hobbled on as well as I could with great pain. I am sure he was sorry for me, for he often patted and encouraged me, talking to me in a pleasant voice. At last I reached my own box and had some corn, and after Robert had wrapped up my knees in wet cloths, he tied up my foot in a bran poultice to draw out the heat and cleanse it before the horse doctor saw it in the morning. And I managed to get myself down on the straw and slept in spite of the pain. The next day, after the farrier had examined my wounds, he said he hoped the joint was not injured, and if so, I should not be spoiled for work, but I should never lose the blemish. I believe they did the best to make a good cure, but it was a long and painful one. Proud flesh, as they called it, came up in my knees and was burnt out with caustic, and when at last it was healed, They put a blistering fluid over the front of both knees to bring all the hairs off. They had some reason for this, and I suppose it was all right. As Smith's death had been so sudden, and no one was there to see it, there was an inquest held. The landlord and ostler at the White Lion, with several other people, gave evidence that he was intoxicated when he started from the inn. The keeper of the toll gate said he rode at a hard gallop through the gate, and my shoe was picked up amongst the stones, so that the case was quite plain to them, and I was cleared of all blame. Everybody pitied Susan. She was nearly out of her mind. She kept saying over and over again, "Oh, he was so good, so good. It was all that cursed drink. Why will they sell that cursed drink? Oh, Reuben, Reuben." So she went on till after he was buried, and then, as she had no home or relations, she, with her 6 little children, were obliged once more to leave the pleasant home by the tall oak tree and go into the great gloomy Union house. Oh God. Addiction is terrible. I don't think we fully understand it yet, at least not as a society. It's much more a mental disease than I think people are willing to admit. I think people are still wanting to find fault in it. I'm going to show you the picture of him lying on the ground. And if you don't want to see it, you can close your eyes now. Sorry if I didn't give you enough time. Hold on just a sec. We'll be away from it. And we're away from it. And there's Sweet Beauty. And then we'll be on to chapter 27 next. Oh. Yeah, I think it's more mental. One, it's more mental than our society is willing to admit. And two, we're not even as a society really, I guess we're opening up to mental illness and learning about mental illness and understanding mental illness, and that, you know, if someone has anxiety, they follow a course the same as if they were diagnosed with diabetes. Neither one is the fault of the person. Both can be medicated. Both can be changed with diet. Both can be a lifelong thing that people live with. I think we're learning more and more about it. But I still don't think we're there as a society. I hope we get there, because I think it's going to be important. I really do feel like a huge part of healing, and especially if someone is an addict, is community. And I do remember I did an inpatient treatment when I was dealing with some depression a few years back, a little more than a few years now, I guess. But what I remember was I was in what we called the mood group, because we didn't have any addictions, at least not illegal ones. And then the other group was the addictions group. But what we all quickly realized was that we were the same, but the people in the addictions had just started medicating their own things with illegal substances. And we also realized that even in the mood group, many of us were still addicted to things, but they were legal things. The gym, sugar. I'm addicted to sugar. So I just think it's, you know, as we're learning more about mental illness, we'll learn more about addiction. And I think, you know, some people use it as a means of medicating their mental illness, but then also they can get hooked on the things that they get addicted to. That's heavy. It's a heavy one. Thanks for sitting with me through it. I did want to share with y'all a bit of positive news. Last night I came home and I went to set the new book down on my nightstand, and in the exact same spot that I would put it was this one. And for half a second, I was like, glitch in the matrix. I found it. But then very quickly I was like, Alyssa, where did you find it? And it had been put in her computer bag. She had let me borrow her computer to work on a resume with a friend. So when I had taken it with me to the friend's house, I had stuck the book in there, and she found it. So my friend Palmer will get his choice of books, whichever one he wants. But anyway, thought I'd share with y'all that we did find it. Anyway, I think that's it for tonight. Thank y'all for sitting with me, being with me tonight. Thank you, Miss Pip. Thank you very much for joining us. Sweet baby, will you join us again sometime? Yeah, maybe. If you get good scratches. Get paid in good scratches. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go downstairs. All right. Good night, y'all.